After my uncle Ethan found out I had a crush on him, he sent me out of the country. However, 5 years later, he invited me back for his wedding anniversary. I never thought that after 5 years abroad, I would have the chance to come back. After all, Ethan had said that in this lifetime, I'd better never appear in front of him again. But it was also he who personally bought me a ticket back home, inviting me to attend his and Hannah's wedding anniversary celebration. Mia had been sleeping peacefully on the plane, but once we got off, she started crying. "Mommy, my feet hurt," she whimpered softly. Hearing Mia's quiet sobs, I quickly picked her up and walked towards the exit. At the arrival gate, I turned on my phone, ready to call a cab. Just then, my phone rang. Seeing the familiar number on the screen, I fell silent, unsure whether to answer or not. In the end, I didn't pick up, but a second call came through almost immediately. I sighed and finally answered. Ethan's voice quickly came through. "Are you out of the airport? I sent an assistant to pick you up," he said in a businesslike manner, as if we were strangers. I laughed bitterly. "I can get a cab myself." Ethan probably didn't expect me to say that. After all, back then, I had been well taken care of by him. During my years by his side, all my needs were met. I never had to worry about transportation. After a moment of silence, Ethan spoke. "Just let the assistant come. Anyway, I bought a gift for Hannah on your behalf. It's in the trunk. You can bring it directly when you come for dinner." Ethan was still so thoughtful, considering even the gift situation perfectly. Of course, when he spent millions on the venue and commissioned a limited edition diamond to create a unique wedding ring for Hannah, it was clear how much he loved her. "All right," I responded softly. Ethan didn't say anything more, but he didn't hang up either. After a while, Ethan finally spoke. "Laura, after 5 years abroad, I hope you've really reflected on things. If you do anything to Hannah, I won't let you off easy." Hearing this, I was stunned. Before I could respond, Ethan had already hung up. Actually, Ethan could rest assured I wouldn't do anything to them. I just wanted to take good care of Mia and find a job. When I was young, my parents died in a cruise ship accident and never returned. Ethan naturally took over my care. My relationship with him had always been harmonious until I became an adult. I realized I didn't just see Ethan as an uncle, I liked him. But I also knew very clearly that there was no future between Ethan and me. So I wrote all my feelings in my diary. If Ethan hadn't seen my diary, I probably could have pretended that my feelings for him were just those of a niece for her uncle. But Ethan saw it. He tore up my diary and asked me how I could have such disgusting thoughts. "Don't you know? I'm your uncle. Even without a blood relation, we can only be family." The usually gentlemanly and refined Ethan was no longer gentle, shouting at me with disgust in his eyes. At that time, I wanted to explain, but couldn't explain anything. In the end, he canceled the job I had lined up and, under the guise of studying abroad, sent me to a remote university overseas. To prevent me from contacting the outside world, Ethan even hired bodyguards to watch me. At first, I didn't understand why Ethan treated me this way. Until the first month after I went abroad, news of Ethan's marriage went viral. Only then did I realize that all these years, he had always had someone in his heart. I watched Ethan's wedding video over and over again. In the video, when looking at Hannah, Ethan's gaze was gentle and loving.
He had never looked at me that way.
From that moment on, I knew that Ethan keeping me by his side for so many years was just out of sympathy and responsibility. His only love was Hannah. I was stunned when the assistant drove me to my destination. This hotel was where Ethan and Hannah got married. 5 years of marriage, and he held a wedding anniversary celebration every year, personally selecting gifts for Hannah. In previous years, he didn't allow me to enter their world. Inviting me back this year was probably just to let me witness their happiness. I numbly got out of the car and saw Hannah smiling as she walked towards me. Unlike my haggard appearance and simple clothes, Hannah wore expensive jewelry and perfume, looking well cared for by Ethan. When she came to my side, Hannah's expression was very surprised. "Laura, how did you secretly have a child abroad without telling me? I've been married to your uncle for so long, and you still treat me like an outsider." Before I could speak, Hannah took Mia from my arms. Without asking, Mia woke up and immediately started crying, struggling not to let Hannah hold her. I took Mia back from Hannah and comforted her for a while. Actually, Hannah knew about my past crush on Ethan. Returning this time, I didn't want to get too involved with Hannah. But Hannah still stubbornly wanted to hold Mia. When Hannah and I arrived at the hotel's private room, Mia was still crying and wanting me to hold her. Hannah forced a smile and handed Mia back to me. Your uncle knows having children isn't easy. We haven't thought about having kids these past few years. Seeing you've had a daughter, I got too excited. There were already several people sitting in the room. I wasn't used to socializing, so I chose a corner seat, and Hannah sat down next to me. She enthusiastically linked arms with me, introducing me and Mia to the others. The looks others gave me were visibly teasing and probing. I couldn't stand the strange atmosphere here, and said I wanted to go to the restroom. When I came back after washing my face, I heard Hannah's voice. Someone had asked Hannah why she brought in an unlucky thing like me. What unlucky thing? Laura is Ethan's niece. Although she went down the wrong path and tried to seduce Ethan before, now that she's had a child, she definitely won't make mistakes again. Hearing Hannah say this, I just quietly stood at the door of the private room. Yes, in others' eyes, I was just a madwoman who tried to seduce her uncle, a shameless fool. Mia tugged at my clothes uneasily, and I comforted her before entering the room. Some things have to be faced eventually. I don't know how much time passed, but suddenly everyone in the room stood up. Mr. Thomas is here. A group of people crowded around Ethan, who had just entered, while I stayed seated in my corner. After a long time, I finally raised my head and looked at Ethan. He wore a suit with Hannah leaning on him, their gazes meeting in mutual smiles. Ethan was surrounded by people and didn't notice me in the corner. Suddenly, Hannah seemed to remember something and, with a smile, nudged Ethan. Ethan, Laura is here too. You and your niece haven't seen each other for so many years. Catch up a bit. Laura even brought back a surprise. Hearing the word surprise, Ethan remained unmoved, first helping Hannah sit down and ordering her a glass of milk before finally raising his eyes to look in my direction. Mia shrank into a ball, looking very wary. Ethan obviously saw Mia too, his eyes widening slightly. Laura, who is this? I hadn't told them about Mia, so when they saw me with her, their expressions were all the same, either surprised or as if watching a spectacle. Hannah spoke for me, Ethan. This is Laura's daughter. Isn't she adorable? She looks just like Laura and seems to be a few years old already. Ethan's gaze moved from Mia to me, examining me for a moment. Just when I thought he wouldn't pay any more attention, he asked, hoarsely, pointing at Mia, "During these years abroad, you got married and had a child?" I looked directly at Ethan and nodded. Yes, I got married a while ago. Sorry I didn't tell you, but I didn't expect him to suddenly do something so crazy after what I said. As I sat at that dinner, with Mia quietly by my side, I knew I was completely out of place. The atmosphere felt suffocating, and each sidelong glance I received reminded me that, to them, I would always be the woman who dared to cross a forbidden line. Hannah was in her favorite role, the generous and successful hostess, smiling falsely, but making it clear to everyone that I was a stranger at her party. My mind drifted back to the days before I left, when I still lived with Ethan and believed that the sense of security he offered was more than just a family obligation. Those moments beside him had been, for me, a time of hope. But now it all felt like a bitter farce. He didn't see me as someone he truly cared about. He saw me as an inconvenient responsibility, someone to be pushed aside so he could finally have the life he always wanted with Hannah. While I pondered, Hannah seized the moment to call attention to me. Laura, tell everyone about your years away and your new life. Her gaze said it all. It was a poisoned invitation. She wanted me to recount every detail of my life, to confirm that I had failed. The silence that followed her remark was unsettling, but I took a deep breath, trying to maintain an indifferent stance. Mia is my priority now, I began, keeping my gaze on my daughter. After everything I've been through, I realized that the most important thing is to give her a peaceful life. My focus is no longer on myself or on what happened in the past. I just want to rebuild what I lost." Hannah smiled, a sadistic glint in her eyes. "How touching, Laura. I can only imagine how hard it must have been. After all, starting from scratch in another country, all alone." That last word stung the most. Everyone knew what she meant. Alone, abandoned, with no one by my side. The tension only heightened when Ethan finally joined the table beside her, making a point of holding her hand and showcasing the affection he lavished on her. They exchanged a look of complicity, something I never shared with him, not even in my most romantic dreams. He then turned his gaze toward me, cold and distant. "I hope you've learned from your mistakes, Laura," he said, each word hitting like a punch. "I gave you another chance and expected you to grow up. Any reckless behavior here will be unacceptable." I wanted to scream, but at the same time, I no longer wanted to give them the satisfaction of watching me crumble. I ran my hand through Mia's hair, trying to find some comfort in her presence. She was the only good thing I had in that moment, the only piece of peace I had taken from that life. Ethan and Hannah didn't understand. They would never understand how much I sacrificed to move forward and raise Mia on my own. Every obstacle, every tear, every lonely night, all so that one day I could show my daughter that even in the face of so much adversity, I survived. Yet, Hannah seemed determined to push me into a reaction. She looked at me with that forced smile, feigning sympathy. "You know, Laura, I was so surprised when I found out you had a daughter. Ethan and I were saying it's really surprising to see someone like you who always depended on others, managing on your own. Quite a change, don't you think?" The venom in her words was so evident that even a few of the more attentive guests noticed the sarcasm. I could have exploded at that moment, but instead I smiled serenely. "Yes, Hannah, it was a transformation. And over these years, I've realized that independence is a blessing few truly understand." She shot me an icy look. I knew my response wasn't what she had expected. Ethan, impatient with the growing tension, muttered something to Hannah, trying to calm her down, but she brusquely pulled away, offended. She then rose dramatically and announced that she needed to clear her head. As she left, the room was filled with an awkward silence, but I felt an unusual calm taking over me. It was as if, finally, I was taking control of my own story. They wouldn't break me anymore. After Hannah left, Ethan turned to me and whispered, harshly, "Laura, you're only here as a family obligation. Don't make me regret bringing you back." I couldn't hold back the bitter laugh that escaped. "The family obligation you felt? Ethan, you were the one who exiled me, who sent me away as if I were a burden, who never really cared about what I wanted, only about what was convenient for you. You wanted Hannah, you wanted the perfect life, so you shipped me off like an inconvenient piece of the puzzle." He was silent for a moment, surprised by my audacity. But before he could react, I continued. "Did you know that, even after all this, I didn't hold a grudge? I accepted my situation, raised my daughter alone, even when you destroyed my future by isolating me. But now, seeing you two behaving as if I were a threat, I realize you never changed. I was away, but you still see me as an enemy." Mia began to cry softly, perhaps sensing the tension around her. I picked her up, trying to soothe her, then stood up. "I don't need to watch your happiness to validate my own pain. I'm no longer the naive girl who once looked at you and saw hope, Ethan. I'm here to say goodbye for real, and that's all." He stood frozen, speechless, as I walked toward the door, Mia in my arms. The guests murmured among themselves, some visibly shocked, others amused by the scene. Hannah threw the accusation onto the table like poison. "You know, Laura, everyone here knows you once tried to seduce Ethan. It was a difficult time for him, but life moves on, right?" She wore a smug, satisfied smile, reveling in the chance to humiliate me in front of everyone. The guests, who had avoided looking directly at me until then, now cast sidelong glances, whispering as if I were some kind of spectacle. For a second, I considered swallowing the comment and letting it go, but the weight of years of humiliation, pain, and solitude wouldn't allow me to. I wasn't going to let them distort my story anymore. I took a deep breath, standing taller as I met her gaze. "Funny you'd say that, Hannah," I began, my voice carrying all the weight of what I'd endured. "You sit here, surrounded by people who barely know me, and yet you think you can sum up my entire life with one accusation. Do you know why Ethan meant so much to me? Because for a long time, he was all I had after losing my parents. I thought he was the only family who truly saw me, who gave me any kind of affection. After my parents died, he was everything to me. I saw him as a father. Maybe I confused that, yes. Maybe I created an idealized version of him in my head because he was all I had left." I paused, watching the smirk fade slightly from Hannah's face, and went on, looking her straight in the eye. "But then, after years on my own, I finally realized the truth. And honestly, now that I see you two together, I understand that you deserve each other. I mistook what I felt for Ethan as gratitude, as a need for family, but now, seeing the reality, seeing how the two of you treat others with arrogance and cruelty, I understand that you're a perfect match." Hannah's smile faltered, her expression wavering between irritation and confusion. Ethan sat beside her, swallowing hard but saying nothing, maybe for the first time realizing that he had no control over this moment. There was so much to be said, so many lies that had gone unanswered, and now was my moment to finally address it all. "You talk like I came here to disrupt your perfect little world, but the truth is that the only reason I'm here is because he invited me." I nodded in Ethan's direction. "He was the one who sent me the invitation. And you know what I realize now? That you two truly do complete each other in ways I never understood before. I once thought I could fit into your lives, that maybe there was a place for me, but now I see it clearly. You're both exactly where you belong, with each other." There was a ripple of whispers from the people around us, their curious glances shifting to judgmental, now directed more at Hannah than at me. And Ethan, who had always been in control, sat stiffly, his face drained of color. "I spent years away," I continued, "learning to fend for myself, building a life for me and my daughter. While you kept up this facade of a perfect marriage, I was out there learning what it actually means to be independent. Maybe it took me too long to see things clearly, but now, standing here, I can say I don't need any of this. I don't need family who would cast me out. I don't need relatives who label me and treat me like I'm disposable. And I definitely don't need you trying to fit me into a story you invented." Hannah's fury was clear, but it was as if she were trapped in her own words. She glanced at Ethan, waiting for him to defend her, but he remained silent, perhaps realizing that anything he said would only make things worse. I stood up, picking up Mia and feeling lighter than I had in years. "I came here out of obligation because I thought it was the right thing to do, that I owed at least that much respect to the only family I had left. But now, I see that my only mistake was believing you were truly family to me." I began walking towards the door, but before leaving, I turned back one last time to meet their gazes, my own voice steady and firm. "You deserve each other," I said, almost softly, but with finality. "The arrogance, the manipulation, the disregard for anyone else. The two of you fit perfectly.
And as for me,
I'll move on, without either of you, without this bitterness, without the obligation." I walked out of that room with my head held high, each step feeling like a release from everything that had weighed me down for so long. After that night, it felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. With Mia in my arms, I returned to the small apartment I had rented for our stay, and as I tucked her into bed, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. That encounter with Ethan and Hannah showed me that they had no place in my life anymore, and the realization was freeing. In the following days, I began making plans. Returning to my hometown had rekindled some old dreams, and I decided it was time to give Mia the stability I'd always wanted. I looked up schools, started sending out resumes, and soon enough, I found a job at a cozy little bookstore where I felt at home. The bookstore was owned by a woman named Margaret, a kind, silver-haired lady with a warm smile. She quickly noticed that I was trying to start over. Over time, I shared a bit of my story with her, and Margaret, with her gentle wisdom, encouraged me to let go of my past entirely. "Laura," She said, "Sometimes you have to let certain people go to find who you truly are." Following her advice, I focused on Mia and our future. Each day, Mia seemed happier. She adjusted quickly to her new surroundings, made friends at school, and for the first time, I saw a secure and joyful light in her eyes, something that filled me with hope. Watching Mia smile was all the confirmation I needed that I was on the right path. Oddly enough, after that dinner, Ethan reached out a few times. He sent messages, even called, but I never answered. Maybe he wanted to resolve things, or maybe, as usual, he needed some sort of validation. But I didn't need to hear his apologies or empty explanations anymore. Every unanswered call felt like a step toward my own peace. Over time, the messages stopped, and my life started to take shape. Mia and I settled into a routine, and everything finally felt stable. Before long, I was promoted to manager at the bookstore, giving us an even greater sense of security. I now had something to call my own, something I had built independently, far from Ethan's shadow. Years passed, and one day, while organizing some books, I received an invitation. It was for a family reunion, a party hosted by Ethan's cousins whom I hadn't seen in ages. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, but something made me pause. I was no longer the same Laura who had left that dinner years ago. I was stronger, more independent, and perhaps it was time to face the past without any lingering weight. At the reunion, I was warmly greeted by distant relatives who barely recognized me. Ethan was there, of course, but this time, the discomfort wasn't mine. He seemed taken aback to see me and tried to approach, but I greeted him politely, then returned to mingling with friends and familiar faces, barely acknowledging his presence. Somehow, my indifference felt like the ultimate freedom. Ethan no longer had any power over me. As I left the gathering, I felt a sense of closure, a certainty that I had finally closed that chapter of my life. Ethan and Hannah would continue living with their choices and consequences. I had my own story now, one that no longer needed to be shaped by them. Today, Mia and I live in a comfortable home, surrounded by friends and things we love. I've built something solid and secure, something that no one could ever take away from me. And at the end of each day, when I look at my daughter, I know that all the struggles and heartache were worth it. I finally found what I'd been searching for: peace and a fulfilling life crafted by my own hands.